Can you tell us a bit about samadhi? And you have such an extraordinary story about this, where the period where you reach samadhi, which for people that don't know, the meaning of that is the mind is in a state of total balance. And I've heard you say that during this period, even your appearance started to change.
See, it's like this. Right now, which city are you in, Sarah?
In Melbourne.
Melbourne. Oh, Melbourne is the city that I visited maximum number of times in Australia. So, see, when it comes to your body, without the umbilical cord of breath and bread, this cannot exist for a moment, isn't it? So, you as a person, physically, is actually not really a person, because without breaching the boundaries of this body, you cannot exist. Without food going into you, without air going in and out, there is no existence for you. So individuality is only on the level of your mind. It's a psychological construct that you think you're an individual, and because it's nature's magnanimity, though we are just a speck in this cosmos, it has given us an individual experience. I think human beings are taking this individual experience too seriously and assuming individualism. There is no individualism. You cannot exist here in this atmosphere without being connected to the soil out of which you're eating food and to the air out of which you're breathing. Without this you cannot exist. The connection is much bigger, much bigger, because over 60% of your physical body is actually microorganisms. With one, of course, you're fighting right now. The rest of them are working for us. Even this guy, we have to train him to work for us, but instead of that we are battling because we think we are too smart. But 60% of it is largely microorganisms, only 40% is genetic material from your parentage. So when this is the case, physically there is no such thing as individual, you are one with everything. Only psychologically you become a total individual. How much of a strong boundary you draw around yourself, that much you feel suffocated, that much you feel imprisoned within yourself. So this is a human predicament. There is the magnanimity and of nature that has given us individual experience. There is a privilege that though we are a speck in this cosmos, we can sit here and wonder about the nature of the cosmos itself. If you look at the size of who we are in this cosmos, we are not even a speck of dust, but we can wonder about the cosmos. This is a tremendous privilege, but we are abusing this by thinking this is an absolute. This is not an absolute, it is only in the construct of your psychological sphere that you are an individual. Most people understand this only when you bury them. Then they understand they're part of the world. When they're living, when they're prancing around on this planet, they think they are alive by themselves. So, this psychological phenomena of thinking that I am an absolute individual, this sense of absolutism has come in many ways. One thing is, this fight for survival makes us strengthen and shore up our boundaries more and more. Then there are religious teachings which are telling you this is an absolute thing, this is made in the image of God and whatever else. But there is no absolutism to life. Life is not absolute, it is an ongoing process. And in this process, right now you and me are floating on top of the process. One day we will be again to the bottom of the process. One day we will be again into the recycling of the process. Today we are floating on the top of the process, and now we get fanciful ideas in our heads. So what samadhi means is to make your intellect equanimous. Why you have to make your intellect equanimous is because the basic function of the intellect is to discriminate. You are able to discriminate between one thing and the other only because your intellect is functioning. This is me, this is the chair upon which I am sitting, this is me, that is you. All these distinctions have come only because intellect is functioning. When you fall asleep, you're not an individual anymore, isn't it? You're just life. Even now you're just life. So if you can be awake, if you can be fully awake and still shed the discriminatory process of your mind and experience life in its totality, the way it is, as a process, as a tremendous phenomena that's happening to us, not an absolute that we have conquered, then you are in a state of samadhi. Samadhi means you have given up your hallucinations and you have come to the experiencing the reality the way it is. The nature of the reality is, we are a part of a large phenomena. We are not an absolute happening.
Mm. With the noise of the world as it is, Sadhguru, how do we do this to really achieve that oneness when we…
They are selling earbuds in the pharmacies, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
This is like this. What you see, what you hear, what you smell, what you taste, what you touch, all of it has a certain texture, all of it has a certain quality. But it becomes significant only if I react to it. If I don't react to something, it's almost like it has nothing to do. It's like this. See, suppose your Melbourne airport is not so crowded, but anyway, let's say you're driving to the airport and there's a massive traffic jam, you're getting late. Now you suffer the traffic jam so much, you're there and you can't believe it's stuck like this, all this, but somehow you got there. You can't run anymore in the airport, but suppose you ran into the airplane, got into it somehow, and then it flew. When it takes off, then you look down, still the traffic jam is on the road, but it looks so beautiful, a string of white lights and red lights, really wonderful actually. Because why? Because there's a distance. This is all it is. What's happening in your mind? This physiological process and the psychological process and the social process that's happening around you, you can be involved but not entangled. If only if you have a little distance. My whole work is about this. My work is not a teaching, not a philosophy, not an ideology, it is not from a scripture. These are simply technologies to give you tools where if you sit here, your body is here, your psychological space is working somewhere else, what is you is little away from this. Once you have a little distance between you and your body, physical suffering is over. Once there is a little distance between you and your psychological process, mental suffering is over. These are the only two forms of suffering human beings have, physical and mental. If you maintain a little distance, you can enjoy everything, you can be involved in everything, but never entangled in everything.